Thank you very much, Ahmed. My business card says Deborah, but people call me Debbie, so I'd be happy if you do that too. I'm very pleased to be here at the invitation of the Italian Embassy this morning. Thank you, Ambassador Bisogniero. I represent the United Nations, and I come at this discussion from the public information aspect, so I think that it will be a contribution that we can make to this discussion this morning, because it's a little bit different than if you represent a national government. The United Nations, as many of you know, has a social media presence on many of the platforms that we're familiar with. Every day our messages reach about 4 million people, and some of the campaigns that we've been involved with recently have outstripped even our own expectations. In particular, we're very involved with issues such as sustainable development, and during the Rio+20 conference this summer, we ran a social media campaign to educate people on this rather complicated topic. We reached, and we had participating in that conversation, nearly 50 million people. The hashtag Rio+20 actually was seen by 1 billion people. All of that was done by 2 people. So you can imagine what that means in terms of resources and what we're trying to do. As I said, what we're doing in the United Nations, in the Department of Public Information where I work, is try to reach out to people. And I think that both the ambassador and Alec put their finger on it. While there is a shift in power, it's also all about sharing information. It's not just about power, it's being able to reach out to people who might not otherwise be able to know what it is that you're talking about. And so although the UN runs these campaigns and runs its information on lots of different platforms, the purpose is really the same everywhere, and it's to communicate the ideals and the work of what the United Nations is doing simultaneously in our 6 languages and those that are spoken around the globe. And in the next couple of minutes, and I'll take about 2 minutes so that we can really open this up to questioning, I'd like to address 3 key elements for us, which is how and why we interact with people, what we do and what we don't do on social media, and how we could and how we want to improve. So I'd like to talk for a couple of minutes just about how the UN does interact with people around the globe, and I think the ambassador put it very aptly. We are, in fact, a multilateral organization, and that presents challenges for us. So, for example, we don't interfere and we don't intervene and we don't really discuss those issues that happen on a local level unless the UN is involved. So if you have a situation where somebody writes to you on your Twitter account about election irregularities in their country, we wouldn't necessarily be able to answer that question unless the UN were involved. On the other hand, some of the really interesting things come when people are writing to us about situations where we can inform them on the work of the UN. So for example, in 2011, we were getting questions on the Twitter account as to why there were not UN peacekeepers present in Cairo. And that was really an opportunity for us to interact with the public and to tell them how the Security Council works, how a peacekeeping mission is created, how it gets onto the ground. Because what we've found is that people, no matter what country they're in, they're very interested in knowing about how the funds that they contribute to the United Nations are used, what is the impact of those funds, and whether or not, for example, their country contributes to the peacekeeping operations. So these are ways for us to be able to inform people on the results of the funds that their country contributes to the United Nations. So we try to provide information about what the UN is doing in very specific ways. Also, the social media can be used to explain complex issues, not only something like sustainable development, which is not a very easy thing for many people to understand, but other things that are really, really important, especially to some of the issues that have already been talked about concerning the Arab Spring. So one of the things that we're doing is we have a video now, for example, on YouTube that explains how UN electoral assistance works. We have another website on the importance and the ability and the reasons behind preventive diplomacy and mediation. These are all tools that can be used in diplomacy, in resolving conflicts, and we are providing them to the public at large. Because as the ambassador said in his very beginning remarks, there are many more actors. They need information, and they need to know how they can act and with whom they can interact. And all of this has to happen in real time. Another thing that we do at the UN, which I think is very helpful, is we are also not operating in a vacuum. It's not just simply people in suits, but we also have very interesting, innovative, and active partnerships with civil society. So one of the most successful campaigns we did actually started locally. It started in Colombia. It was a very simple idea. The idea was to pull up your pant leg and show people the impact and the effects of landmines. And so partnering with an NGO locally in Colombia back in 2011, we were able to bring that issue to the public in Colombia. A year later, working with NGOs, we had brought the landmine campaign to people in 70 different countries. Those are the kinds of things that you can do, that social media will allow you to do. My second point, though, there's something that's really important for the United Nations, is that while social media allows you to reach out to new publics, we have to be very conscious of the need to not abandon traditional media, because there are those places in the world where there isn't electricity. There are people in the world who do not have telephones. There are people in the world who can't read and they can't use them. So that's really, really important there. The other thing, and I think I'll wrap up with that, is that in a multilateral organization, in a big organization with the UN, social media is something, I come from a journalism background. I actually come from a wire service background, so I'm very familiar with breaking news in real time. And that is one of the challenges that we have that we want to do better. Because as the ambassador said in his opening reports, what is really key is to listen. What is really key is to share. And what is really key is trying to work together to solve real problems in real time with real solutions for real people.